Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone, on this dreary, rainy summer night. Welcome to the Land Use Committee. I'm Andrea Kelly, Chair. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Land Use Committee. We've got 3 items on our agenda tonight. First, I'm going to introduce the members of the committee who are here with us, both in the chamber and on Zoom. From Ward 1, we have Councillor and Vice Chair Allison Leary. From Ward 2, Tariq Lucas. I'm from Ward 3. From Ward 5, we have Julie Irish. From Ward 6, we have Sean Roach. From Ward 8, we have Stephen Farrell. We also have some trusted city staff members with us. Our committee clerk, Cloris Bucher, is here in the chamber, and online we have some members of the planning department, Sandria Berman, Kat Kemet, and Zach Melcher. I believe we will be joined later by City Solicitor Jonah Temple, but he's not here with us at this time. Oh, we are also joined right now by Councillor Randy Block from Ward 4. The first item we have tonight is item number 130-26. That is a request to allow 3 stories to exceed height and associated parking waivers at 1100 1102 Beacon Street. What we'll do tonight, as we usually do, is we'll hear first from the planning department and then from the petitioner. Ms. Berman, I think this is you.
It is, Madam Chair. Thank you so much. Bear with me as I just go ahead and share my screen. All right. Hopefully everyone can see that come up.
Yes, thank you.
You'll expand that. All right. So let me get this out of the way for you. All right. So we have here again, returning to us, I believe, for the 4th time, as petition 130-26, which is a special permit site plan approval to construct 4 live-work units in a single townhouse residential building with associated use and dimensional relief. Originally opened on April 14th, continued to May 12th, June 2nd, and then again to this evening. Again, just a brief overview of the site quickly. The subject property is an undersized and irregular shaped 5,331 square foot lot that's located in a business 2 district right in the Four Corners intersection in Newton. The property is currently improved with a 2-story commercial building constructed in 1945, which does present as 1 story from the street, but is in fact 2 stories with a slope topography at the rear. The surrounding neighborhood includes BU 1 and 2 districts, as well as multi-residence 1 and 3 districts, and properties in these districts are variable in height and size and consist of mixed residential and commercial uses. Direct abutting properties also consist of 2- and 3-story business and residential uses, including multi-unit condominiums to the north and west, and commercial uses to the north, east, and west as well. Again, here, the dimensional relief requested since the June 2nd, 2026 continued hearing remains consistent. Relief for the number of stories, for the height, as well as a parking waiver for the required number of parking stalls per unit. However, 1 new item of relief has been added pertaining to the use, and that is to allow ground floor residential use in the BU2 district. In terms of criteria, we have the standard 4 criteria here: that the specific site is an appropriate location, that the proposed building will not adversely affect the neighborhood, that there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, and that access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. And finally, that literal compliance with the number of parking stalls required in the ordinance is impracticable due to the nature of the use or the location, size, width, depth, shape, or grade of the lot, or that such exceptions would be in the public interest or in the interest of safety or the protection of environmental features. In terms of just some brief project updates, we have here, since that June 2nd hearing, that the petitioner has requested that change in use, which does require relief for ground floor residential use in the BU2 district. The only other changes were made to the architectural plans, and that was just internal changes to the building itself, which was to relabel the ground floor room as a bed, which was previously a live workspace, to a bedroom, and also to alter the windows on the eastern facade. However, no other changes were made to the site plan. In terms of planning's analysis, the proposed all residential use does provide an opportunity for additional housing that's appropriate for the site and the neighborhood, which includes a variety of districts, building sizes, and uses within that Four Corners neighborhood. The proposed 4-unit residential use will not adversely affect the neighborhood or create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, as the project does meet those dimensional setbacks for the lot while creating additional housing that's close to public transit and other amenities. The proposed 4-unit project also complies with lot area per unit, and the requested relief to allow 3 stories and up to 36 feet in height is in conformance with abutting properties. The site plan also notes that pervious materials are proposed for the driveway and walkway. And finally, the Four Corners location does provide nearby access to public transportation and amenities and multimodal transportation infrastructure, making it a preferred location for a residential development that supports active business areas found in these local villages. And again, for those folks at home that are looking to follow up on these materials, you can access this PowerPoint presentation after the meeting, which will include links to the plans that are viewed as well as the application itself. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and just pull up very quickly the site plan for folks to review. All right, bear with me just one moment. Okay, and in terms of that site plan for you, I am going to show the elevations first. We have here the side elevation, so I'm hoping everyone can see my screen. This is Beacon Street's elevation right here. You'll see the carport is at the left, or the eastern facade, and entrance here. We have the exterior elevations to the west. This would be facing the larger building that's office to the west if you were looking from that side building. And again, the 4 townhouses you'll see, which follows the topography of the lot, which does slope downward. And then here, the east elevation. And again, the petitioner is seeking relief for the 3 stories, as well as the up to 36 feet in height for the area. And finally, here we have the proposed site plan, which is an aerial above view of the site. You'll notice the irregular shape of the lot, the position of the 4 dwelling units, townhouse style, the proposed driveway here, and each of the carports underneath. And I'm happy to share any other plans. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen at the moment now, but if there's anything anyone would like me to pull up, just let me know. And I'll return it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Berman. We'll hear from the petitioner next, but I just wanted to mention that we've been joined remotely by Ward 7 Councilor Brian Golden, and online by my Ward 3 colleagues, Pam Wright and Julia Malicki. Mr. Callahan or Mr. Downey, who is going to be presenting for your team tonight?
Hi, Madam Chair. John Downey is going to present for us.
Great.
I'll turn it right over to John.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, John.
Great. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is John Downey. I am an architect. I live and work in Auburndale. This is you've seen this before, obviously. It's a 5,300 square foot site. It has been vacant for 5 to 6 years as a commercial property, and unable to get a reasonable offer on the property as a market or as a commercial property. And I'll be brief because you've seen this before. I'm gonna share my screen. Oh, I see why it's not breaking. Give me a second.
Okay, I was just going to say, can you make that a little bigger?
Maybe
Maybe that's what you're trying to do.
That is exactly what I'm trying to do. Is that better?
Yes.
Great. So these are the renderings of the building. This is from Beacon Street. The entrances to the apartments are on the west side. The car entrances are on the east side. And as you can see here, there's a walkway that goes down that gets to each of the 4 units. And if I go back up this way, oops. That's the architectural site plan. Ms. Berman was showing you the civil site plan, but the units are all residential. I think in Ms. Berman's opening statement, she called it a live-work project, and we are not proposing live-work anymore. We're back to the all residential. And so the entrance to each of the units is along the western side, and again along the eastern side are the carports and a back entrance to each of the units. And then if you move up into the building, then there's a kitchen, dining, and living room on the 2nd floor. And the 3rd floor has 2 more bedrooms and a bath. And the last unit has a bonus studio on that level. And then each of the units will have a roof deck that is sort of hidden behind the sawtooth shape of the roof. And again, this is the elevation from Beacon Street. This is the back elevation where you will actually be able to see up into the roof decks. And then the west elevation, with each of the unit entries. And the east elevation where you have each of the carports, and now a bedroom behind those, and the upper level of the units. So we are no longer looking at this as a live-work project. We're back to the all residential. So that's no longer an issue, but that does mean that we have to ask for relief for all residential on the site, or the ground floor residential, as Ms. Berman mentioned. And this is not dissimilar in what we're asking for to the one that is at 1114 Beacon Street, which you can just sort of see right here, a little piece of it. That's a 4-story, 30+ unit building, all residential in the BU2 zone, and is also has the same parking ratio that we're proposing, which is 1.25 parking spaces per unit. That's really it. And I'm, to be brief, I want to make sure that we have enough time for questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Downey. As Ms. Berman said, this is your 4th time before us. And aside from the use change, not a lot is different, a few little changes. I'm going to go, the public hearing is still open, so I'm going to ask if there are any members of the public, either in the chamber or on Zoom, who would like to ask questions or make comments on this project. Come to the microphone. Ms. Make sure it's on. There's a button at the base.
One that very helpfully says push. Thank you. My name is Lindsay Golden. I live at 19 Garland Road in Four Corners, so maybe 200 to 300 feet from this location. I'm here in support of approving this as is for multiple reasons. One, it's a bit nostalgic. It looks, the floor plan and the way it looks is almost exactly like the first house that my husband and I ever bought. So we lived in a townhouse like this. It was a great starter home. And so I would assume that other folks who are young professionals looking to move to Newton and have family members, this would be a great location for them. So that's exactly the type of resident that we really want to encourage to come and to Newton. Second, the current place needs to change. It's an eyesore, so really almost anything is an improvement. This particular building is a major improvement and is exactly the sort of building that will help make Four Corners neighborhood even more livable, walkable, look great, great place to be. And third, I really want Newton to be a place where people can come and build quickly. So when the permitter, the person who's requesting the extension has done everything we ask, is abiding by all of our requests, and our experts in the city have approved it. I think it is really important that the city council go ahead and approve it rather than hold it up anymore. So with those comments, I'd ask you to please approve this as is. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out to testify. Any other members of the public? I see Brian Golden's hand up. We're going to take it into committee really soon. Let me just ask one more time if there are any members of the public who would like to speak. I don't see anyone. And Brian Golden, you got your hand up first. So when we take it into committee, I'm going to go to you first. I don't see your face. You are muted, but I do see your hand, and I hope you meant to do that.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Yes, I am here. I didn't realize we had actually entered into committee, but thank you for that. And I just wanted to echo the sentiments of the speaker before me. I think the last name was Golden. But
Yes.
No relation. No relation. This is totally symmetrical view, but no familial relationship. I appreciate what the development team has done here. I really, it was appealing the notion of doing first floor commercial, live work, a variety of things that all, have so much appeal, but we have to take it down to the site. And I think we are at risk of trying to do too much with that site. And even though all those other sort of alternative potential uses included in the project might have been a nice thing, it was complicating things too much. And I think the goal here is to get that eyesore dealt with. And the prior speaker is right. I drove by the site earlier today, and I focused on it probably in a way I normally don't because it's sort of becoming background noise. But when you look at that, that is a really problematic visual there. So it's not just the visual, it's, we need to breathe life into the site and providing housing there, walking distance to the Green Line, you name it. Makes all the sense, and I'm eager to see some units be created there. And I appreciate what the development team has done, and I support this latest iteration of the project. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Golden. We're still in committee, so I'm going to go in order of hands. Next is Councillor Leary and then Roach.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm in agreement with Councillor Golden. This site has been vacant way too long. It hasn't worked out as a commercial space. They've tried, and we're coming back to residential. And I think it's as one of the members of the public had already said, it's a nice project. It could be starter homes, young families, young professionals, and we need those people here. And remember, housing is where jobs go to sleep, right? So we need those people too. And I strongly support it. And I think it's time. We need to approve it this evening. I would have liked to try some commercial, but it's obviously not going to work. So I think it's a lovely residential project, and they've made a lot of efforts to get us here. And so I'm in full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leary. Councillor Roach, followed by Councillor Irish.
And did you see Councillor Block as well?
Yes, I did, and he's after Councillor Irish.
Okay, I just want to make sure, nothing if not collegial. One quick question for Messrs. Callahan and Downey. Is this going to be wired for EVs?
I'm not sure we can answer that. I would think so. I think it may be required.
Okay.
Just from the, if I'm remembering my stretch energy code correctly, I believe it does have to be.
That's great. What's that? Is it going to be wired for EVs?
I think Counselor Roach is asking the question of whether it's going to be set up either ready or providing charging for electric vehicles, EVs. That's the answer.
Yes.
Mr. Downey thinks so. It would be terrific to have an absolute answer on that.
And I'm grateful. to-
Actually, I just got a text from our client who says, yes, it will
Great.
be.
I wouldn't want to make it a condition. I just would ask a question. I'm grateful to the chair for translating for me. Generally speaking, I think it's great policy to preserve commercially zoned property. This property needs to be an exception. It's demonstrably not viable as commercial property. Working next to a dry cleaners are very special little snowflakes of businesses, and dry cleaners are evaporating in the city. There are two within 2 blocks of each other, this and Jalen Cleaners down the west, that are no longer in business, and this property is clearly not working as commercial property. I note that the current assessed value is well under $1 million, and even with the higher property rate, tax rate for commercial property, this will throw off more tax revenue as for residential properties. What's interesting about this is going to make that commercial district more productive. And I think that if we think about, yes, we want to preserve commercial tax base, but we also want to make our commercial tax base productive. And I think this is going to be helpful in that regard. Live work was an interesting option to explore, but what we've learned over the course of these many months is it's not viable. There's no compelling need, there's no demand for this, and it probably would not be possible to enforce that as a use. And then lastly, the parking solves itself. This is not set on a street that has on-street parking. So this will attract people who are willing and able and desire to live car light. So I'm not concerned that the parking waiver is going to create problems for the neighborhood. Last point, I'd like to echo something that I think is really profound that Councilor Leary said, which is this makes for good starter homes. And this council expresses a great deal of concern about the lack of starter homes in the city, and often conflates starter homes with small single-family homes. That ship has sailed in Newton, and this is what starter homes look like. And if we want more starter homes in Newton, we need more modest residential multifamily buildings like this. So I'm an enthusiastic enthusiastic support of this because this is in Ward 6. I have the privilege of making the motion to approve when the time comes, and I look forward to it. Thank you.
I will definitely be coming back to you. Thank you, Counselor Roach. Next, we'll have Counselor Irish, followed by Counselor Block, and then Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The question I had actually was partially answered, or maybe fully, by Counselor Golden and Counselor Roach, but I would love to hear just from the petitioner the thinking behind sort of abandoning the live work and moving to residential, and what that decision making was. So just like to hear a little bit more about that decision.
John, do you want to take that, or would you like me to?
Sure, I'll take it. Am I off mute?
Yes.
Okay. Sure. Two times ago when we were before the committee, we were presented all residential, and we thought that was the most beneficial use of the project. But during that meeting, we did get some feedback from some of the councilors that, they wanted to keep some component of commercial in that commercial zone. So, you know, we took that feedback and we tried to meet that need and, you know, to solve that problem, let's say. And the live work seemed to do that for us, but, you know, as it isn't defined in the zoning code in the city of Newton, it was just, you know, made it too complex and it was hard to get consensus on something that wasn't defined. So we, you know, just went back to the all residential because, you know, we feel it's the, you know, the most beneficial use for this particular property.
Does that answer your question, Counselor Irish?
Yes, no, thank you.
Is that it?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Mhm.
Okay.
For now.
Counselor Block.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to confirm or ask the petitioner or planning, these floor plans, are these all pretty much the same? And are they 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms? I had a little trouble following that.
They are mostly the same. The units, in my mind, they go A, B, C, and D as you go from Beacon Street towards the back of the property. A, B, and C are virtually the same. A has obviously some more windows because it faces Beacon Street. And then Unit D has the bonus space on the second and third floor with the 5th parking space tucked underneath it. So it has a little bit more space. Each of the 3 units, A through C, are around 1,450 square feet of total usable livable space. And Unit D is about 1,700 square feet, a little bit more than 1,700 square feet.
And that translates from a bedroom count standpoint. They're all 3 bedrooms?
They're all 3 bedroom.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm, and thank you for the square footage.
No, you're welcome.
I'm just, I cannot get over the parking challenge. There's no parking on Beacon Street. And, I mean, three bedrooms, 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms, that's sort of the sweet spot for families and we certainly want to encourage that kind of, residential size. But with that comes a not particularly car light lifestyle. Some people may self-select and live there, and some may want to live there and need 2 cars, and it's going to be very hard to do that. So I'll just keep my comments brief, Madam Chair. I can vote for this kind of project, but not waive the parking requirements. I can't get there. I think that to create a parking shortage in a part of our city where there's very limited parking available, there's no parking on Beacon Street, so you have to go to side streets or find somebody else to rent you or sell you a parking space. That kind of secondary market just doesn't exist at the moment. So I just can't support this the way it is right now, and I regret that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor Block. Just quickly following up on the parking aspect that Counselor Block raises. I just want to get back to Counselor Irish because I think part of why the live work thing didn't work out was also because of the parking. When we are talking about were they having businesses on the first floor, would clients ever be coming? Would staff ever be parking there? There is already only 1 parking spot per unit. And I think that was part of what led to the decision that this may not be the right location for the combination commercial residential was the parking. But anyway, thank you, Counselor Block. Counselor Lucas, followed by Counselor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the 4th or 5th time this site has been before this committee. And at the prior meetings, the prior public hearings, I emphasize the importance to maintain the commercial space on the ground floor. It is a business, it's zoned business. And we're right in the middle of a village center, let's call it, even though it's not one of the official 13. It's still in the middle of a village center. Very, just about every other property in the area is commercial in use. So I still prefer to see commercial on the ground floor with housing above. That is my preference. That has not changed. I agree with Councilor Block on the parking waiver. These are not big homes, but these are not small homes. These are not small apartments that are ranging, 700, 800 square feet. These are, as the petitioner said, ranging from 1,400 to 1,700 square feet. So I agree with Councilor Block on not granting the parking waiver. He asked my question about the bedroom count. It's 3 bedrooms in each unit. I have a question for Mr. Downey on the floor plans. It said second floor media and third floor something else. I don't remember what it was. What do those terms mean?
Madam Chair,
Um,
Madam Chair.
Because the counselor has addressed Mr. Downey first, could we hear from him and then I will come to you, Mr. Morris?
Thank you.
I see your hand.
Actually, unless John will let me speak first.
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead, Terry.
Thank you, John. I'd like to respond to several things that both Councilors Block and Lucas said. First of all, the 3-bedroom count. Though, as a practical matter, that downstairs room, which has been turned into a bedroom, could very well be something quite different. It could be a den. It could be a home office as opposed to a professional office. The reason why it was called a bedroom is because there's an expectation that all of these spaces will be identified as such. As a practical matter, I think Councilor Block said in passing, without really dwelling on the significance of what he said about self-selection. Self-selection is in fact paramount in these situations. The other thing about the parking ratio, 1.25, it's my understanding, unless I'm wrong, that the multifamily dwelling that was approved by special permit 1114, not too far away from here, is at the ratio of 1.25. So the idea that we are somehow creating a new standard is wrong. In fact, we're following in the footsteps of the much larger project, which creates a far more demand for on-street parking, if that is the case. Councilor Lucas talked about this being a commercial area. Yes, it's a commercial area to the extent that on one corner you have a gas station, and another corner, opposite corner, you have a building, an office building that was approved by special permit in my tenure. But it's not a retail space, and that is the significant difference. It's not Newton Center. It's not a village, Newtonville Square. It's basically, you don't have the proliferation of retail use there that's going to generate a lot of activity and therefore a lot of demand for parking. So I think the idea that this would be all housing is again consistent with 1114 Beacon and there's the other residential use that's in the proximate area. I think that that should be taken into account. The square footage, one of the units, I think John has said at the very end, takes advantage of the extra space. The other 3 units are at 1,450. And that is certainly modest considering some of the projects that have been approved in this city most recently for multifamily use. So I would hope that the committee would take into account the criticisms that were made in the context and approve this use.
Thank you, Mr.
Again,
Morris.
I return back to self-selection. People are not going to buy a condominium where they can't park their cars. Thank you.
Thank you,
Madam Chair.
Mr. Morris. Back to you, Councilor Lucas.
Thank you. Mr. Morris, the plans that were submitted on the first floor say bedroom. It doesn't say den. It doesn't say office, it says bedroom. Next to the bedroom, on the floor plans, excuse me, I might have said site plans. On the floor plan, next to the bedroom, there is a full bathroom. Okay? If the idea was to use it as an office space, maybe a half bathroom, perhaps, maybe, I don't know. I'm not the developer. I can only go on what I'm looking at on my screen right now. It is a full bedroom with, excuse me, it is a bedroom with a full bathroom. That is what your clients submitted to the city, and that is what I am acting on. So it is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. That's what it is. I had another question, and I didn't see it in the memo. If it was in there, I apologize. What is the plan for trash pickup and snow removal?
Trash and snow removal are going to be private contractors.
Are you gonna store snow on site?
It would be very limited because there's not a lot of place to store it. So the contract would be set up with a private contractor to, whatever can't be brushed away is going to have to be removed.
John, if I could augment that comment. We're facing a similar situation that we saw on Thurston Road, which was approved 2 weeks ago. And the answer there is the same as the answer it is here, that to the extent that the site can accommodate the snow, it would be stored on site. To the extent that it exceeds that capacity, it would be hauled away. If I could also, while I have the same, Madam Chair, I'm aware you do not want a back and forth between councilors and petitioners.
You're right, I don't.
I just would like to make one point, and it's not, I think that there needs to, and it's addressed generally. It's a bedroom, yes, it's called out as a bedroom. That doesn't mean it's going to be used as a bedroom. And in fact, it's called out as a bedroom, I guess, because, and I guess I can speak from personal experience, as people get older, they may want to not have the bedrooms on the 3rd floor. Or you may have someone who lives there who may want to have the bedroom on the 1st floor. I think if we had to do over again, we would have labeled that space as bedroom / den or some other use that would have provided for the flexibility. Let's not be so
Mr. Morris.
married.
Mr.
Yes.
Morris, I think we definitely understand the flexibility and the
Thank you. Okay,
naming. and
that's it.
We're good with that. No need to go on. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Chair.
Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. When we get to the council order later on, can we add a condition about snow removal and trash pickup?
I was going to say we can address that in the council order as we did on Thurston Road, as we think is appropriate.
That's why I asked them the question, because I didn't know what the
Yes.
plan was.
Absolutely, we can do that.
Thank
And
you.
I know, I will trust that you will remember that if I don't, or if the councillor from Ward 6 doesn't.
Well,
Are you set?
it will be a couple minutes from now, so hopefully I don't forget.
I know.
Yeah, that's all I have on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair. Some of my comments are about our process, and I hope that we can address this offline as a committee. But I frankly am disturbed that this has taken 8 months to get to this situation. I think we need to be much clearer in what our standards are and what we're going to hold people to. And that has gone back and forth in this particular project. And I don't think it was appropriate for us to put this petitioner through that. I find this current project welcoming. I'm glad to see it. There have been many comments about its affordability, the size of the units, and the diversity of the use of some of the rooms. I agree there's an issue with parking, but I think buyers will recognize that they only have one space. There are rules on every single street in Newton about where you can park and where you can't park. They will have to obey those rules. But I am pleased to see this project come back. And I do hope that we can get to issues like, is live work a standard that has been defined, discussed, and approved at least by this committee, so that we know what we're talking about when we ask people to respond this way. But as I said, I'm glad to see the project and I will heartily support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Councillor Leary.
I'll be very, very brief. I'm going to follow up. I'm I know. I'm going to follow up on Councillor Farrell's comments too. I don't think we should be micromanaging how people live their lives and how they decide if they're going to have 2 cars or 3 cars. It's so expensive to live in Massachusetts anymore. People are lucky to have 1 car sometimes. Between housing, the automobile, healthcare, the cost of preschool, people can't afford to live here anymore, and we desperately need housing. We have beautiful schools, and young families can't afford to live here. So we need to get to yes on this. And this is a good project. It's going to provide 4 important units of housing. I don't think because it's not perfect in your eyes that that's a reason to deny it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leary.
Motion to approve, motion to close the hearing, motion to approve.
I'm going to make some comments and then I'd love to come to you to do that. Thank you, Councillor Roach. You will always, ward councillors almost always, at least in this committee, get to have the last word and make the motions. But I did want to just weigh in a little bit. And mainly I'd like to say I support everything Councillor Roach said earlier. I do agree with Councillor Farrell that I hate to see a project take this long. One of our missions on the City Council and on this committee is to try and make it a more efficient, streamlined process that is not so time and expense onerous on behalf of petitioners. They will have to take some of the responsibility for that in this case, but I do regret how long it has taken this owner and developer to get to this point. I do like where we are now. I think that it is appropriate to have this be all residential. I think it was worth exploring the idea of live work, and maybe this is just not the right site for it, but the concept is something we will continue to have conversations with. I'm making notes on a series of other topics that I think we would like to talk about in committee at a meeting when we have a night of lighter agenda items and maybe another working session, and we can talk about some of these things, streamlining, planning, the formatting, all of that. But in the short run here on this project, I will be voting to support it too. These are 4 moderately sized units. And I think they're needed, and I think all residential in this site is more workable. So Councillor Roach, let's go back to you for the motions.
Motion to close the hearing. And on behalf of those people who need relatively moderate housing, and for whom whatever drawbacks about this project are relatively minor, I move approval.
Thank you, Councillor Roach. On a voice vote, let's vote to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Public hearing is closed. Ms. Berman, we'll come back to you for the findings and conditions.
Great. I'll go ahead and share my screen, Madam Chair. All right. Just bear with me here. Alrighty.
And you know we're going to be looking for that snow and trash clause.
Yes, correct. I had a little bit of time to pull something together so we can take a peek at that as we get further into the conditions. But we have here the draft order to allow ground floor residential use, to allow up to 3 stories, to allow up to 36 feet in height, and to waive 3 parking stalls. We have here the findings under item 1 that the site is an appropriate location for the proposed 4-unit residential building because it is located in a mixed-use area with other multifamily residential uses and includes access to public transportation and amenities located in the Four Corners neighborhood. Under item 2, the proposed 4-unit, 3-story building with a height of 35.4 feet as designed will not adversely affect the neighborhood because the project's design utilizes tiered elevations to break up the massing of the 4 units and provides new landscaping design for screening for abutters. Under item 3, the proposed 4-unit building will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians because the proposed parking includes dimensionally compliant stalls for each unit and will utilize a smaller single curb cut for vehicular entry and egress, improving pedestrian safety. Under item 4, access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. And under finding 5, that literal compliance with the number of parking stalls required per unit is impracticable due to the topography of the site, irregular shape of the lot, and existing nonconforming lot area. Compliance with the 8 required parking stalls would require an increase in hardscape and a reduction in building area and vehicular maneuverability. The site was within a mile of multiple transportation options and pedestrian and bike transit infrastructure that provide alternative multimodal transit options. Here, I just pause to show the petition number, the petitioner, the owner, the address. That will be 4 residential units in 1 building. We have here itemized the relief granted that was referenced above and the zoning. We have here under item 1, the standard plan referencing condition. We have the site plans, architectural plans, as well as the proposed landscaping plan. Under item 2, we have our standard operations and management plan condition. Under item 3, our standard pest and rodent mediation condition. Under item 4, our standard building permit, our standard, construction management plan condition. Under item 5, this is where I highlighted the inclusion of the trash and snow removal condition. And I can read this out. If we'd like to tweak this or change any part of it, we can prior to the issuance of any building permit for vertical construction for the project. The petitioner shall provide a final site plan, which shall include the location of adequate snow storage areas or identify suitable alternative for snow removal for review and approval by the Department of Planning and Development, Engineering Division of Public Works, and the Fire Department. Under item 6, our standard building permit condition. Under item 7, our standard certificate of occupancy condition. And under item 8, restating compliance with the landscaping plans approved above. I'm happy to scroll back over any of these conditions if we'd like to edit them. I'll keep my screen up, but I'm happy to stop sharing if you'd prefer that as well.
You can leave it right now because there is one hand up, so it might be helpful to have that up. Councillor Lucas.
Thank you. Ms. Berman, do we need a condition for the private trash service?
I can absolutely include that, Councillor Lucas, in this condition. I will just make sure to word it more appropriately, but I will add the trash removal, private trash removal here as well. And we can edit that before it goes to full council.
Okay, I guess we'll look at that when it's in the Friday packet in a couple weeks. Thank you.
No
Great.
worries.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Berman.
Okay.
Councillor Roach.
Yeah, can we have a condition
Oh.
that
Sorry about that.
you don't need
It's
you don't
okay.
need to leave it up, Ms. Berman.
Okay.
Can we have a condition that expresses that the reduced parking spaces will result in additional housing?
What?
This is Kat Kemet from planning. Can you clarify what that condition would look like?
It's not a condition, it'd be a finding. Sorry, a finding that the waiver of the parking requirement is necessary in order to have additional housing units. So so what we're saying is that the reduction is required. I guess maybe a slight change. Maybe we need to see it again. Sorry to get into the weeds.
Under the findings?
No
Under
worries. I
findings.
can pull that up right now. I know the condition, the finding, excuse me, that you're referencing, Counselor. I
Yep.
believe it's finding 5 here, and you just wanted to note that it, the reduction in parking
Building,
allows for.
so in a reduction in building area, a reduction in the number of homes as well as
Okay.
building area.
Okay. Reduction in building area and, would you like me to remove building area and say, number of units instead?
Yes.
Okay.
You're trying to tie the need for housing to the reason why we're making a waiver for less parking.
Yes, I
You're
am.
trying to put that in writing so we have it.
Yes, I am.
Okay, does that look good on to folks?
I think the technical term is groovy.
Okay,
Okay.
are we all set? I think we're, Counselor Farrell.
Hello, through you to Councilor Roach, just please. I'm concerned about your comment in that your finding. I don't understand the purpose of it. It sounds like if you will build small, we'll give you an exception to parking. And I don't think I necessarily agree with that. I think the request for a waiver on parking should come just naturally through the project. I'm just concerned about we're setting anybody up to say, hey, you gave somebody a waiver because we built smaller units.
So the waiver is, as a practical matter, the parking is a function of the number, the parking ratio is a function of the number of units. If they had fewer units, they would be able to provide parking at a higher ratio. And therefore, the ratio of homes to parking, of parking to homes is lower directly because the number of homes on the site is larger.
I think what Councilor Roach is making the point that, for instance, if this had come in as a 2-unit development, there would have been ample space to give each unit 2 parking spaces. And he's trying to say, I believe, correct me if I'm taking words out of your mouth, that he thinks there's a certain advantage in providing more units. They are smaller, they do have less parking, but that meets a certain other goal of the city for more housing units. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you again for translating.
I just want to be sure that Mr. Farrell and the rest of us understand the intention. Thank you.
I'm not. May I continue, please?
Yes.
I understand that, but that notion leads to the fact that the more units you have, the fewer parking spaces we may require of you. And that's what I'm concerned about. And we've got great big buildings that have 1.2, whatever the statistic was. I just am concerned about the notion that if you build more units, we're going to reduce the parking requirements.
And fair point. The finding is a matter of fact, and the fact is that in this case, the fact that they have 4 units as opposed to 2 or 3 means that they have less room for parking, and therefore the one flows from the other. And I would like the findings to reflect that. It's not a judgment, nor does it have precedential value. It's merely a finding to reflect the nature of what's happening here on this particular site.
Is there a way then that it can be stated more specifically that this, because of the site, the size of the site? I don't know. I'm just concerned that in the future, someone would come in and say, I'm going to build 10 units, therefore I only want you to give me 2 parking.
Let's take a look at that finding
know.
again, because I do believe it referenced some of the specifics of the site.
And very, very much, and Ms. Berman, would you mind to bring it up again?
Number
Because
5.
it mentions the area and the topography
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah.
So I don't think it has the precedential
It could be
value.
even the size and the shape. I mean, you could add other restricting factors about the site, but it is tied to this specific site. It's not saying that the direction we want to go on all new development is more smaller units and less parking. I feel like that is part of your fear, Councilor Farrell, that it's indicating that a little bit. Is that true?
May I ask that you change the word "the site" to "this site"? And I'm fine. I understand. I'm just
Yeah. I
raising
think
a caution.
the way they were, this these findings are particular to this site, but if that makes you feel more comfortable, I think that's an easy thing to change. Ms. Berman, do you agree?
I'm happy to make this change provided that law doesn't have any issue. I can change the language slightly to the topography of this site, irregular shape of this lot. Is this more helpful? Is this the correct language that you would like, Counselor Farrell?
Yes, I mean, confirm with the law department. And again,
Yes.
my concern is cautionary here. Okay.
You could also mention the size of the site, which is substandard.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, good. Counselor Block, let's try and move this on.
Yes, I was not planning on raising this question, but I thought that our findings were intended to be linked to the determinations that we make, that we must make as a committee and as a council. And I don't know how this finding relates to whether this has an adverse effect on the neighborhood. This is an arithmetic observation. And yes, if there were only 3 units, there could be more parking. And if there were 5 units, there'd be even less. So I don't find it particularly useful. And to the extent that it either is precedential or that there's an implication that this finding is our way of declaring to the full city council that that this convinces us that there is no adverse effect on the neighborhood. Personally, I'm going from abstaining to voting against this. I mean, this is this is a question for legal, frankly.
Well,
And they ought to work this over, and any counselor that wants to propose something like this, I think should be vetted with legal before it gets brought to us. So that's my comment, Madam Chair.
Ms. Berman said she will consult with law on it, and I think that's a good idea. But I wonder, while we're talking about this, again, to wrap it up and briefly, if Ms. Kemet or Ms. Berman want to address the issue that Councilor Block raises, which is, are the findings limited to tying into the criteria we need to be addressing, or do they reflect other findings of goals of the city or professional planning? What exactly are the findings defined as? And what should they be limited to?
I'm happy to try to address that.
Thank you.
So these findings are listed in the ordinance. So anyone could look in the ordinance and find the exact findings that we bring up for the standard for criteria for every project. In some cases, there are other criteria that need to be included. In this case, there's an additional finding related to parking. So Sandria put up the exact language earlier, but the finding is that a special permit may be granted to allow for exceptions to the parking requirements if it is determined by the city council that literal compliance is impracticable due to the nature of the use or the location, size, width, depth, shape, or grade of the lot, or that an exception would be in the public interest or in the interest of safety or protection of environmental features. So there are a few different ways that the committee could approach it depending on what they think about the proposed parking configuration and the specific site before them. So things like environmental concerns are explicitly raised up. Things like the size, width, depth, shape, or grade of the lot, all of those are relevant in that assessment.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kemet. Councilor Block, I've put findings on my list of topics for our committee to talk about within committee too. Thank you. We're back, I believe, to being able to vote on this motion. Let's take a roll call vote. Everyone done? Good. Okay, let's move on.
Counselor Block,
No,
Counselor Farrell,
Yes.
Counselor Golden,
Yes.
Counselor Irish,
Yes.
Counselor Leary,
Yes.
Counselor Lucas,
No.
Counselor Roach,
Yes.
Counselor Kelly,
I was going to say aye, but now I'm going to say yes because everyone else said yes. Yes.
the motion passes 6-2.
All right, thank you all for your comments. Mr. Callahan, thank you for your perseverance. Move on. We're moving on to the second item of the night, which is number 227-26, a request FAR and facade ratio at 22-24 Mechanic Street. We're first going to hear from the planning department, and then we'll hear from the petitioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just bear with me as I pull up this presentation. Okay, and we have here petition 227-26, a special permit site plan approval to raise and rebuild a two-family dwelling requiring relief to exceed maximum floor area ratio and facade ratio. You'll see here from the aerial map that the subject property consists of a compliant 9,483 square foot lot in the Newton Upper Falls neighborhood. The site is located in a multi-residence 2 district and is improved with a 2-story, 2-family dwelling constructed in circa 1830 and a 125 square foot accessory building shed at the northeast corner. The surrounding neighborhood consists primarily of residential uses within the multi-residence 1 and 2 districts, including multi-unit condominiums across the street to the west, single and 2-family dwellings to the north, south, and east of the subject property. And the topography of the site does feature a descending slope from the front lot line at Mechanic Street towards the rear lot line of the lot at approximately 11 feet in the change in grade. Again, here the petitioner seeking the raise and rebuild of a 2-family and requiring relief to exceed FAR. They are proposing 0.65 or 0.55 is the maximum allowed as of right, and to exceed facade ratio, proposing 81% where 60% is the maximum allowed. In terms of criteria to consider, that the proposed project in a multi-residence 2 district is an appropriate location for the construction of the 2-family dwelling that results in an FAR of 0.65 and a facade ratio of 81%, that the construction of the 2-family dwelling that results in an FAR of 0.65 and a facade ratio of 81% will not adversely affect the neighborhood, that there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians created by the construction of the proposed 2-family dwelling, that access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types of numbers of vehicles involved. And finally, that the proposed FAR of 0.65, where 0.55 is the maximum allowed as of right, is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood. In terms of just some project updates, since the planning memo was issued, the department has received some updates to the forms that were on NewGov. We did receive a revised architectural plan set. However, the only changes were just to amend the coordinates that were listed on the elevations. They were incorrect, and so they just altered those so that they were consistent, but no other changes were made to the elevations. The renderings of the proposed retaining walls and image was also shared and submitted to NewGov on the 16th. We also were provided with a civil engineered site plan that has been reviewed by the engineering department that speaks to the proposed grading on site. We also received a landscape plan that was submitted on July 20th, and the petitioner has also uploaded a copy of their tree permit, which was issued on October 14th. In terms of planning's comments, we understand that the proposed 2-family use and configuration is consistent with the surrounding neighborhood's residential character. The petitioner's plans are compliant with a majority of zoning requirements, including stories, height, lot area per unit, setbacks, frontage, open space, and lot coverage. Although the site is subject to old lot setback standards, the petitioner has chosen to comply with new stricter lot setbacks, which apply to new lots. And the only difference there would be in the side setbacks. Old lot side setbacks are a minimum of 7.5 feet, whereas for new lots, it's 10 feet. The request to exceed FAR, proposing 0.65 where 0.55 is the maximum allowed, is an 18% increase over what is allowed by right. However, the slope topography of the lot from the street to the rear contributes to 1,048 square feet being added to that FAR calculation. The request for relief to exceed maximum facade ratio of 60%, proposing instead 81%, is due in part to that existing topography of the lot and the proposed size and design of the 2-family dwelling. And finally, there are new retaining walls that are proposed, but those are under 4 feet. They're located on either sides of the dwelling at the rear. And there is an existing retaining wall of 5.5 feet in height that will remain at the rear of the dwelling. And again, here we have our plan reference slide, access to the application materials for anyone at home that would like to reference this after this meeting. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and just pull up some of the plans just to go over some of the elevations and site plan.
But you are still sharing your screen. I
I
mean, it's
hope
part
not.
of your presentation. You will
I
be.
apologize. Yes, I will be. I just pulled the plans from NewGov, so I want to make sure pulling up the right plans here.
We appreciate when you incorporate the plans in your presentation because it shows us something visible to go along with the words. So thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, let's pull that up here. Thank you for your patience. And all right, so we have here the proposed site plan. Again, you'll see in the dark lines here, this is the proposed building footprint. We have retaining walls on this side here and here. On your right-hand side, the retaining wall height is 3.7 feet. On your left-hand side, it ranges from 3 to 3.8 feet. We have another retaining wall right here proposed of 1.5 feet, a very small identified retaining wall of 0.6 feet. And then here we have an existing retaining wall in the back that's to remain at 5.5 feet. The side setback here on either side, 11.2 feet. We have a 26-foot setback, which meets the 25-foot minimum. And we have a 15.5-foot setback here, which meets the 15-foot minimum for the rear setback. I'm going to go ahead and toggle over, I hope I can, to the elevations. Has my screen changed over to elevations for everyone?
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Excellent. So we have here the proposed west front elevation. So as you see from Mechanic Street, this does present as 2.5-story dwelling. However, scrolling down here, we'll see that from the rear of the lot, so facing the building from the rear lot line, this now presents as 3.5 stories because of the slope topography of the lot. And here again, you'll see the right, so the south and north side elevations of the building as well. And finally, just to take a quick peek, because it was something that was shown earlier, apologize here, I'm just going to pull this up. This is just the rendering of the proposed retaining walls that would be facing abutters. And I'm happy to pull this up again if folks want to see the look and design. But I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen and turn it over to back to you, Madam Chair.
1 second before you
Sure.
do that, could you go back to the elevation if you think this would be helpful to us? I think it would be, and talk a little bit about the facade ratio, which is something that I think we need to try and envision what that means in this project.
So the facade ratio, and I would say that perhaps the site plan might be even more useful to understand, but it's the measurement of the front facing facade of the building relative to the frontage, the measurement of the front lot line. So if we toggle over to the site plan, I think this could also be helpful just to look. We have here the measurement. I'm just going to zoom in for everybody because I know it's difficult to see on the screen. But we have here the building's widest width measuring of 78.25, and that's the measurement of the front facade. And then we have here that ratio against the total length of the frontage of the lot. And that is why this is 81% of that total front lot line there. So that is the facade ratio that we reference. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay. All right, happy to stop sharing my screen, but happy to pull anything back up if anyone needs to see
Great,
anything.
we may want that. Right now, we'll go to the petitioner.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Mike Ross. I am the attorney for this project. I'm going to share my screen and hopefully it works.
Aha,
I think so.
yes.
Beautiful. Make it big. Okay. And with me, but online, is my client, King Lee, and the architect, Kai Yin Yip. There's going to be a little echo here. I'm sorry, my computer's making a noise, but so what we have here, this is, as we already described, 2224 Mechanic Street. It's in a MR2 district. It's an existing two-family. It was approved for demolition. This has a tremendous slope, as you heard, going back. I'll show you some images of that. The proposal is to build a two-family, 2.5-story project. Each unit will have 4 bedrooms and 2 parking spaces. These images here will kind of demonstrate where I was going with the slope. If this house was built today, it too would have nonconformities because of that walkout basement that you see coming off the back. And I think it's more than an 11-foot slope coming off. You can see the drop right there coming off of Mechanic Street, where the parking space currently is, dropping into the yard and then continuing to slope downward. Another image. Here's a view from the top of that little parking area going down. And as mentioned, this is the relief we're seeking. This shows the 2 items, first being FAR, and again, account of that topography. In fact, as mentioned, if you were to remove the basement, the FAR would actually be at 0.54, just below what would be allowed but for the basement. But, you know, that's not how it's done, and I recognize that, and that's why I'm here today. I also, the second item, as mentioned, was the facade. It's listed at 81%, but I do want to say, as mentioned, this is not a square lot. This is not a rectangular lot. This is more of a geometrical lot, and it gets wider as you go into the lot. So the provisions of the facade code do not allow for these types of oddly shaped lots. They just refer to the frontage, whatever is on the front there. That's the ratio that's being counted. But in a situation like this, you have a lot that is wider in the middle. And the mere fact that you have an oddly shaped lot, the mere fact that you have an extremely sloped lot really does make it a candidate for relief. That's what the relief laws, that's why zoning laws are written. It's for these types of odd shaped parcels with specific, unique conditions to those parcels. And again, that's why we are here. And then also mention, worth noting, the side yard setbacks are not only back to the earlier standard, but they are exceeding their side yards. They're 10 feet is the requirement, but each of these is at 11.2 feet instead of the required 10. So that creates even more of a buffer on either side of the property. And again, this is that site plan. You just saw it earlier, but you can see it's not a square. It gets wider in the middle. That's what I was referring to earlier. So these are the plans. This is just the floor plan. This is the basement. It has a bedroom in it. They're the identical on each side. This is the kind of main living space on the first floor. No bedrooms on this floor. Then you go upstairs. There are the other 3 bedrooms. And then
Everyone
there's
see
kind of
that
a,
clearly, or read that? Do we want that larger? Are the plans clear to everyone? They're not to me, but all
I
set?
can
Okay.
I can get off my presentation and go deep.
I just thought maybe you could make it a little bigger because we can't read the
Yeah.
words. If you zoom in, perhaps. Maybe it was just me.
No, it's hard to read.
Okay. We can look at the plans, but it's just hard for me to look at something and not be able, that the words are blurry.
Understood. I'm sorry about that.
That might be good.
So again, here you have your basement with a 1-bedroom, guest bedroom downstairs. Here you have your main living space, the two garages on either side. And then this is the second floor. This has the 3 bedrooms. And then you have this, the half floor on the top, in the gable, kind of like a bonus room, maybe a kid room, a playroom, play area, something like that. It does have a window on the sides where the gables are, as you'll see in the elevations. These are the elevations. Here you can see that drop, that substantial drop coming off this. This is the side of the building, so you can see the front being Mechanic Street and the back of each side showing that drop. Here you have the roof. We are making solar ready, but also installing solar panels on the roof. There'll be a EV charger and all electric house. This is the landscape plan. There are 3 existing trees that were cited in the tree report that earned the tree permit. And then those trees will be protected during construction. They are more perimeter trees, really. Well, one of them certainly is, and the other 2 are close to the perimeter. And they will be protected during construction. And then that's it. We're not adding any other trees. It's just going to be grass, a kind of a clean grass, non-landscaped, with these 3 trees. There's mention of a couple of the retaining walls throughout the site, and this is the type of material that they're going to use for those retaining walls. This just shows a number of projects that came before us, and some of which have been approved for FAR, some of which have been approved for FAR and facade. I do want to say my client purchased this property before both rules went into place. You know, it might have been a different decision had she known at the time that this rule was coming into place, but it was purchased before both ordinance changes has occurred. My client canvassed her neighborhood, and the green dots are all the letters of support that we submitted to the committee. And the red dot is where the location of 22-24 Mechanic Street is. And I'll pause there, Madam Chair, if there are any questions.
Thank you. What we'll really do is go to the public hearing part, and then we'll bring it into committee, and then there will probably be some questions for you. So if you want to take a seat in the meantime, you can, or you can stay at the podium. Thank you, Mr. Ross. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak or ask questions or make comments on this project? I don't see any hands right now. If you are a member of the public and you want to speak, raise your hand and I will come back to you. But right now we will take it into committee. Councilor Block, followed by Lucas.
It was a tie, Counselor Lucas.
I saw you
Well,
first.
Yes,
and I
it
get
was
to
just
complete-
it was just the line of vision. I think you'll be next though. So I have a couple questions for planning. The frontage, what's the length of the frontage of this site?
Hey, Councillor Block, Sandria Berneman in planning. The frontage, I believe, is 96 feet in length.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that.
Sure.
And the memo from planning states at a certain point, planning recommends the petitioner consider design modifications, specifically a reduction in square footage that could bring the project closer to compliance with maximum FAR and facade ratio. Maybe elaborate on this recommendation and what the petitioner's response was to your recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Block. Sandra Berman here. In terms of planning's recommendation, I think we always do encourage folks to reach full compliance with our zoning ordinance. So part of that was to have the petitioner consider design changes to their proposal that could bring them closer to compliance with those two items that they were seeking for relief. And that could take the form of design changes to the footprint of the building, but also a reduction in square footage, perhaps a reduction in height. There's many ways to manipulate a design, but I would allow the petitioner to speak to whether or not that's something that they would consider or had considered previously. I would defer to them to speak on their own behalf.
Would the petitioner like to address how they thought about and responded to planning's recommendation?
Mr. Ross, are you going to be speaking for the owner and the architect, or do you want to call upon them for sometimes, depending on what the nature of the question is?
Sure, I will generally be responding, but we can certainly go to them whenever we need to. Counselor Block, the petitioner did in fact work on different schemes. Mostly it was prior to the deadlines relating to the facade, to the FAR with the basement regulation. Maybe planning remembers, I think we did a last minute Hail Mary to try to get a set of plans in that would somehow comply with the old regime. And facade was not yet in place. It was really the FAR that we couldn't get around, that we tried to get around. And had we gotten around there, we would have been in the clear. We wouldn't have been here. I think facade would have been accomplished because of the timing there too. We could not get around the FAR issue, though we tried. We tried to make a larger rear yard setback so that it wouldn't get counted. And there was some creative work in place, but to be honest, it just wasn't working. It was becoming a tortured exercise. And in the end, we just said, look, we're going to have to go to land use. And the facade issue, we don't mind being in land use. I'm happy to be here. Of course, I'm personally happy to be here. But, I think my client wanted to do an as-of-right project. They really did. And when they bought this thing, they thought they had an as-of-right project. They did. But they, in the end, they did not, because the rule and the law changed.
Well, thank you for sharing that little journey. What's before us, of course, is the proposal in which the facade ratio it's a substantial relief that you're asking for. This is not anywhere close to de minimis. Your comment about the shape of the lot, I'm intrigued by that, whether that's a way of thinking about the facade ratio that you've ended up proposing, and whether the shape of the lot really is an explanation why, or if that's just the fact of the shape of the lot. And if the building weren't so wide, it would just have a different ratio, would have a lower ratio, and there'd be either no relief or a more modest relief that you'd be requesting. Help me. I'm really trying to understand this, and this facade ratio requirement, it's a recent change in the ordinance, and we haven't had that many. I think this is by far the largest amount of relief of the ratio that anybody's come to us so far. So I'm very I'm sensitive to that myself. I suspect everybody is thinking about that as members of this committee. Let me just say a generally positive thing about your proposal. I know Mechanic Street. Newton Electric is right down at the bottom of that hill.
Counselor Block, could you use your microphone a little more directly?
I'm
so the
sorry,
rest
I-
of us can hear you
I'm-
too.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to face.
I see that.
petitioner at
That's
the
very
same time
polite of you.
as
We
I'm trying
can't
to
hear
talk-
you.
Talking to, so is this better? Is this
Yes.
better?
Thanks.
So I know that street very well. Probably a lot of people buy their specialized fixtures and such there. And it could use some sprucing up for sure. And I think this would. But is there anything else you can tell us about the reasoning why this facade ratio has to be this large?
Thank you, Counselor. I think, it's funny because this is a new ordinance, as you just pointed out, and sometimes these things have a way of evolving and changing. Often, many other types of ordinances like this, they might take the average of the width of the lot. The curse comes off a little bit when you look at the width that I was trying to direct your attention to. It drops down to a number in the 70s instead. And I think it gets closer to the type of relief that's been allowed. I don't know if you had other geometrically challenged lots. I didn't look that closely on the other stuff that came in front of the committee. It might have been all squares. It might have been, I don't know. I don't remember, but it kind of invites that type of calculus, maybe in a future version one day of this law. But today the law is the law. It's as it's written, and I stand in front of you with a higher number than we would have liked to show. We do think it would have come down. I can tell you that it's a 4-bedroom. It becomes, like I said, a 0.54 FAR. So from a mass perspective, this isn't one of those McMansions. It's still, it's a smart little home. It's not a giant home. And I guess that's the best I can do.
Mr. Ross, maybe to help you out, I see the architect has his hand up, as does the planner, Sandria Berman. So let's go to Kai Yin Yip.
Hi, my name is Kai. So I just want to talk a bit about the design process. So like we have a few things working against us with this design. First of all is the topography. So like the lot slope back like the planning board said, about 11 feet from the street to the rear of the lot. So like when we were designing the house, we like if we put the garage say in the basement, then we would have a very sizable driveway in order to let the car from the street level down to the basement level, and it will also has a sizable retaining wall, retaining the soil in order for us to build that driveway. And another thing that we how should I say it? Mainly like is when we also tried like pushing back the garage, but since the job is so significant, like we will get into the issues of the house being considered a 3.5 story instead of a 2.5 story. So that's why we have to keep the house more towards the street in order to make the average grade and the midpoint of the basement to work for this building to be considered a 2.5 story. So it's like we have a lot of variables in the design. So like it's either like it's really hard to satisfy all the criteria with this topography that we're working with.
Thank you, Kai. Ms. Berman, did you want to speak? Your hand was up, but you took it down.
Yes, I might just follow up with what Kai had shared, and if you don't mind, I'll share my screen because I think I think he explained it very well, but I think the site plan might be helpful. So in terms of the proposed building, if the applicant was to take the existing building in terms of the square footage proposed and extend it further towards the rear of the lot where it slopes downward, that would lower the proposed grade, which would render the basement, the midpoint of the basement above that, above the midpoint, and it would count as as the first story, which would render the design as proposed as a 3.5-story dwelling, which would require a variance. So I think the reason why the building footprint is sort of a elongated rectangle on the site is to push it as close as possible towards the front lot line so that the average grade measurement works with the measurement of the midpoint of the basement so that they don't require a variance. I'm not sure if that helps at all, just seeing the building, but I just wanted to add that as well.
Thank you. Councillor Block.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for their comments on this, and I look forward to how everyone else thinks about this facade ratio requirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Block. Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Ross, welcome back. Did you say that the rooftop would be solar ready, or did you say you're installing solar panels?
We will be installing solar panels.
So what was the solar ready?
He said them both.
Said them both, and I was asking my client on the way here why her plan said solar ready and not solar installed. I think they read it literally. Kai's on, he can tell us. I think they read it literally as the requirement that it must be solar ready, so they showed that on the plans. But we will be installing solar panels.
Okay, all right. I just wanted clarification on that. You also said that the lot either narrows or widens as you go further back in it. Is that correct?
Widens, correct.
Widens. Okay. Ms. Berman, can you bring up the site plan again? Because I am lost on this. I'll wait till you get it up on the screen. Now, are we looking at the entire lot here? Can you zoom out, or I want to see what basically I want to see the whole lot. Okay. Can you take your cursor and just give us the outline of the lot, please?
So I believe this would be the southern lot line. This is the rear or eastern lot line, northern, southern.
Oh, okay. So the street's at the top. All right. Okay.
Correct. Mechanic Street is right up here.
Okay. All right. So yes, it does, I guess, get a little wider as you approach the rear of the lot. And Mr. Ross, I understand why you're seeking relief for FAR. We, as you had it up on your screen, we routinely approve relief for FAR, especially when it's a difficult site that slopes down or slopes up. We do that all the time. I presume that if the lot was flat, you wouldn't be seeking relief for FAR, correct?
Correct.
All right, yeah. I'm fine with that. It's the facade ratio. It's new. I understand your client probably bought it or had an agreement to buy the lot before we passed the ordinance, and then this was imposed on the design when your client was designing the home here. So the issue is the width of the house. Again, it's 96 feet in frontage. So you should have, about, doing some math, about 54 feet to work with if you're complying to the ordinance. I think my math is correct. That's where I'm stuck. You're at, I think, 81% and the ordinance is 60%. So you're well above it. Your client's well above it. So the question is there a way to narrow the home so you're not seeking so much relief from 81 when it should be 60?
there's always a way to do, there's always a way to do something, right? So I don't want to sit here and say that, no. I would, but the way I would like to answer your question is go back to what the architect said, is that we are dealing with a very narrow shelf to put the entire programming of the entire house, and we are literally not able to use the rest of the lot. And to me, that calls out the very reason to get a variance or to get an exception. It's these type of unique situations. It's not for every lot in that neighborhood. It's for this lot in that neighborhood. That's when a variance or an exception should be appropriate. And we're in a situation where we can't put any more building programming onto the lot. The staff memo even warns us of this. She writes, should the special permit be granted as proposed, planning cautions that any deviations in the proposed grade during construction may result in the basement being considered a first story. She's talking about inches here. That is, look, a lot of people come in front of you. I'm not sure how many come in front of you with this unique circumstance with a matter of inches. So that is why I would answer your question. That is how I would answer your question.
Okay, well, this is a first for, excuse me, I think this is a first for facade ratio that is 81%. I think we had a couple, 9193 Newtonville Ave, which was a very small restricted lot, which dropped down in the back, like this one, but the lot was significantly smaller and more narrow. This is where I'm stuck because it's 96 feet. So are you trying to say that if you were to narrow the building, you would then need to get more build further back in the lot, which would result in it being 3.5 stories?
Yeah, we'd be back here for a totally different reason. If we were intending to keep the square footage, if we were just lopping off square footage, I mean, but we have a program here. We have, parking, and it's not a very generous floor plan. So it's tight in there. We need to comply with code, and we need to have the appropriate hallway sizes and widths and all those things. It's
Okay.
just a very tricky site. And again, the front is 96 feet, but as you get further in there, it's over 100 feet. Your ratio drops, and that's not what the law says, but it does say in other parts of your ordinance, it does allow for averaging, and that drops down to a 70. I'll give you the 75%.
75 what?
The ratio drops down to 75%.
The maximum is 81. Is that what you're saying?
Right, the worst we can be on this site, and what the law actually says, it says 81. But if you let me count it, if you play along with what I'm suggesting, which I'm not suggesting you have to, I'm just saying if you kind of envision what I'm saying, it's really 75.
81, but it's really 75. Yeah, I'm stuck on this one. I'm stuck. I understand you're in a hard place, but I'm looking at the ordinance and just how much relief you're asking for. If you're at 62%, you'd be good to go, but you're at 81% or 75. That's still a lot to ask for. So I am stuck on this. So I don't want to belabor this anymore. I'll set Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. I'm sure you will be hearing there are other options and ways of developing this site. This is not the only thing that can be done on this site. And if no one else mentions them, I'll mention a few when I speak. We're going to go to Councillor Roach, followed by Leary.
Thank you. So first of all, big kudos. By the way, we need a Vatican II for the chambers, because the fact that we're facing you and not the audience. So kudos for canvassing the neighborhood and providing specifics about their feedback. A quick question, is the developer intending to put in irrigation?
Thank you, Councilor Roach. Kai and King are on the call. That is a question that I would ask for a lifeline on. Are we doing irrigation for the project.
Yes,
Your Queen.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't think we should be, I think, and we can bring this up as a committee-wide meeting, but I would certainly discourage the use of irrigation for ornamental grass. It's not environmentally good, and it's supporting invasives, yada, yada, yada. So I see no compelling reason to exceed the FAR or the facade ratio. A few things. So the building is 63% larger than the existing building. This is what we talk about when we talk about the concern about tear downs and rebuilds. This goes from just under 2,000 square foot a unit to just over 3,000 square feet a unit. That doesn't, the problem with the FAR is that the units are too big. And if you had smaller units, you'd comply with the FAR. I also note that 574 square feet of the nonconformity or proposed nonconformity is due to the attached garage. That you can just figure out how to park outside, and that would help solve the problem. In terms of, the other thing about the FAR in the basement is the FAR calculation based on the midpoint, the midpoint of the garage, of the basement, is meant to reflect that at a certain walkout, the basement becomes usable as habitable space as reflected in your designs. This is not a hardship. This is just a different design that it's a sloped property, which gives you the opportunity to put habitable space in the basement. So of course it's going to count against FAR. That doesn't strike me as a hardship. Facade ratio, this gets back to the garage. The facade grows because the building is too big and it is accommodating enclosed garage, attached garage. Make the building smaller. Don't have garage, the facade ratio becomes a much easier problem to solve. So I'm not convinced, as the chair has alluded, that there are not design options here that would allow you to require no relief or much significantly less relief. I will note, and this has no bearing on this, but I will note as a policy matter, I would be fine with this size building or even larger if there were more homes, but for two homes on this site, there's no reason to exceed the FAR or the facade ratio. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Roach. Councilor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The facade ratio is a pretty, as you know, pretty recent new rule we have. And we were trying to, have new homes not overwhelm the neighborhood and take up all the street space. And that's the intent of it. And I also am concerned about exceeding that facade ratio to such a degree. I understand it's a difficult site, but I think you have to work with what you have. And I think other design options should be considered here. Maybe it's 3 bedrooms instead of 4 bedrooms, or maybe you do other different designs. But I think you should comply with that ordinance. And the intent of it, I agree with, or come as close as you can. I mean, we want to work with you on a difficult site, but I just think there's just too much house on a difficult site, and we should look for options.
Thank you, Councilor Leary. I'm sure we're going to want to hear from the ward counselor, and I'm going to want to make a few comments, but I see some of our colleagues who are not on the committee with their hands raised, and I would like to hear from them. I'm particularly interested to hear from Pam Wright, who sits on ZAP, and I'm sure she can help explain more about the intention and the applicability on this project of the facade ratio. Counselor Wright.
Thank you.
Followed by Julia Maliki.
Thank you, Chair. So first I want to say, it's a little, you say that you're doing new lot standards and not doing the old lot standards for your side setback. But the reason for it is not to be generous, it's to put another parking spot there. So it's not giving you much open space really because it's a parking spot. The next thing is the lot does get a little bit bigger, but from where you measure it, which is the front of the house, it gets, I think, 6 feet bigger. And so instead of having a house that's, right now, I think the facade of your house is 78 feet. And if you did add that 6 feet, it would be 61 feet that's allowed versus 57. I mean, the whole purpose of the facade ratio is that you don't have this huge house sitting up by the street and, just a huge monolithic front there. We want to make it more smaller scale. This, if they would redesign it and make it not as wide, it would work. Now, what this advertised living space is, because you're not counting all your basement, you're not counting some of the living space in your attic, is over 3,600 square feet per unit. The project just before this had, much smaller units. I think they were 14 to 1,800 square feet. So you could make this smaller and still comply. Now, personally, because you're on a sloping lot and your basement is going to be part of your FAR, I'm willing to kind of forgive that as part of, going beyond your FAR, because that's really your lot is sloping and you don't have any control over that. So going above the FAR, yeah, as long as it's reasonable, I don't have a problem. But the facade ratio, we're trying to get rid of what you're doing exactly right here, is going from lot line to lot line with the front of your house. So you can redesign it. And these are going to be big units. Like I said, they're going to be advertised as over 3,600 square feet per unit. Thank you.
Just, Madam Chair,
Thank you, Counselor Wright.
quickly,
Do you need to answer to that?
just on one item on the open space comment, I do want to point out that we are at 63% open space when 50% is required. And
No, that's good. But you said you went to the new lot standards for the side setbacks, but you really did it for the parking space.
yeah, no, I get it. We're actually improving the amount of open space compared to the existing structure. You see the existing structure has that giant paved parking area to the left of the building. We are improving green space on this lot.
Well, I'll have a few words about that later.
Thank you.
Counselor Maliki.
Thank you. So I guess first of all, I'm always a little skeptical of people claiming a difficult lot when it was difficult when they purchased it. The slope didn't suddenly appear. Regarding the facade build-out ratio, so I see the current owner purchased the lot, I guess it was January 28th, 2025, and it was a mere 3 weeks later, February 18, that looks like the docket first showed, the new docket showed the docket item on the facade build ratio item. And my recollection is that facade build out ratio might have been a topic in meetings generally before that docket item, but it was on the zoning and planning agenda for many, many meetings throughout 2025. Maybe there were ones where they didn't actually get to it, but I see February, March, June, October, um, at least when it was on the agenda. So the whole concept of limiting facade build out ratio was out there, even if though the exact terms were not known. So I think it's, it's kind of as much warning as anyone can get about zoning changes. And I think zoning changes are already always a possibility because, as you know, people are well aware, we're concerned about huge new structures replacing modest structures. So I don't see any compelling reason on a new bill to waive the standard. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maliki. Because I am going to go to Councillor Irish last, it's in her word. I'm just going to squeeze in a few of my comments at this point rather than at the end. I think you've already heard some suggestions. I'm getting a clear sense that people are not ready to vote for this tonight and that will probably need to come back and be redesigned. But specifically, I'll say some of the options I see that your client can think about. First of all, I presume you were not hired at the time that this discussion was going on in Zapper. You might have stepped in to help steer this in a different direction sooner. I'm guessing you came on board later. Could be a single family house. Could be narrower 2 units, smaller units. You could seek a variance if you're really claiming that this is like a geographic hardship for you, rather than come for a special permit. If you really think you deserve a variance, you should go to the ZBA for that. Councillor Roach's comment about the garage is true. That counts towards the whole facade ratio. I'm personally kind of in favor of much smaller units, 3,600 square feet. These are options that your client has. He or she may not want to do them, but these are options. All of these are options. In terms of improving the green space, I wish you hadn't said that, because then I wouldn't have had to speak up. I think that landscape plan is the most minimal thing I've ever seen. 3 existing trees at the periphery of the site are staying, and the rest is green. That's going to be grass with or without irrigation. The photo of the way the wall is going to look, there were actually plants on that photo, but what you were showing us is the material of the walls and not plants. I hope that your client will rethink a landscape plan that actually has more plants on it, and that would actually be an improvement of green space. But I think we would like to hear now from Councillor Irish, who I'm going to guess is going to make a motion to hold. And she may have some specific suggestions too. Councillor Irish.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I know this street well. It's a minute from my house walking downhill. So I'm very familiar with the neighborhood, and thinking about, the purpose of the facade ratio, again, is to reduce sort of the massive line to line. And I think this is a perfect example of when this would really work and the neighborhood would really benefit from adhering to the facade ratio. It's a narrow street. It is a mix of single family and 2 family. I think probably more multi-family in that end of the street. But it's a dense area already, and the purpose of the facade ratio was to take that in consideration and to improve the streetscape. And I think it's 35% overage with what you're proposing at 81%. As others have said, that there are options, and I'd love to see smaller units and more open space, more trees. I don't think we're quite there yet. I think you've heard a lot of good ideas and suggestions. And at this point, I would make a motion to hold.
Great, and probably to keep the public hearing.
And first, a motion to keep the,
Before we vote on that, Councillor Farrell had his hand up. Want to be able to hear from everyone before we vote.
Thank you, Chair. I do want to just say to the petitioner that I am in agreement with what I'm hearing from my colleagues. The 60% facade ratio is very intentional. When we were out there looking at it today, the house to the left as you face your property is the kind of thing I think we're trying to avoid. I know that's a change in direction for the city, But I think it's one that we, as certainly land use and the council itself, or ZAP, we're trying to move towards reducing the amount of tear downs that are then replaced by much larger units. And I think there are ways, I mean, I agree with Councillor Wright saying if you did something that kept the facade ratio more in a greater perspective, I would have less trouble with AFAR. But I just want to state that I have the same sympathy about these other issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. I think that's everyone who wants to speak. We have been joined by Jonah Temple on Zoom in case any legal questions come up next. Welcome, Mr. Temple. There has been a motion. All in favor of keeping the public hearing open, say aye. Aye. Is any- That sounds unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Golden, too, Councillor Golden. We have a motion to hold, and I would like to do that on a voice vote, just so we can keep track of each individual vote.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell, Counselor Golden,
Aye.
Counselor Irish,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Roach,
Aye.
and Counselor Kelly.
Aye. No,
Motion
yes.
passes 8-0.
Okay, that's unanimous. We'll probably see you and your client back here again.
Thank you very much.
A little bit more time at the drawing board. Our last item is number 22826-26, a request to exceed FAR at 33 Aspen Ave. Mr. Melcher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll go ahead and pull up the slides. Okay. Good evening, Zach Melcher, Senior Planner for the City of Newton. I'm presenting petition number 228-26, which is a special permit to construct multi-story rear and side additions to a single-family dwelling exceeding floor area ratio. For the neighborhood context, the property is located in an SR1 district, improved with a single-family dwelling constructed in 1898. The property is located on a corner lot, which creates two front setback requirements, one on Aspen Ave and one on Hawthorne Ave. And there are vehicular access points on each frontage as well. The neighborhood is residential in character, and surrounding properties consist of single-family homes. And there are several existing trees on the property which will not be affected by the proposed construction. The petitioner is requesting special permit relief to exceed the floor area ratio. They're proposing to construct side and rear additions to the existing single-family dwelling. One of the additions on the eastern side consists of a bump out to accommodate a new mudroom and kitchen, and the other one is on the western side and consists of an attached two-car garage and additional living space. The FAR will increase from 0.27 to 0.41, where 0.34 is the maximum allowed, requiring relief. And there are two existing nonconformities. One of them is the lot is undersized at 9,965 square feet, where 15,000 square feet is the minimum required. And the front setback from Aspen Ave is 13.8 feet, where 25 feet is required. Here we have the standard special permit criteria. The site is an appropriate location for the additions which exceed FAR. The proposed additions which exceed FAR as developed and operated will not adversely affect the neighborhood. There will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. Access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. The proposed additions which exceed the floor area ratio are not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood. For the analysis, in total, the additions will add 1,407 square feet of gross floor area to the single-family dwelling. And as a result, the FAR will increase from 0.27 to 0.41, where 0.34 is the maximum allowed. As I mentioned, the lot is undersized, which affects the FAR calculation. The side and rear setbacks will be slightly reduced, but remain in compliance with the zoning ordinance. And the eastern side addition laterally extends the existing non-conforming front setback. However, it does not further encroach into the setback and is considered de minimis and is allowed by right. And before I conclude, I will go ahead and pull up the site plan quickly. Can you see the site plan?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Sure thing. So this is the overall site plan. Here is the eastern side addition, which includes the kitchen and the mudroom. And as I mentioned, the setback is being extended laterally on this side here, but it does not encroach further into the front setback along this line here. It's just lateral. And this is the western side addition, which includes the garage and deck. And additionally, there are 2 new retaining walls and a set of stairs that lead to the backyard. And then I'll quickly show that on the architectural plans as well. Here's the eastern side addition, one side of the house. And then this is the addition with the 2-car garage, the deck, and the additional living space above. And with that, I'll return my screen back to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Milcher. Who is here to speak for the owner, the petitioner? Mr. Andreni, is that you?
At some point, but we have our architect, Carrie Murray.
What's the name?
Carrie Murray.
Okay, we'll be sure to give. There, I see. Do you want her to make the presentation?
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay, Ms. Murray.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll lower my hand. Okay, good evening. I'm also going to share a presentation. If you could give me one moment to pull this up. And then I will just confirm for everyone that you are seeing my presentation.
We do.
Wonderful. Okay, great. I am Carrie Murray of Carrie Murray Architecture. I'm the architect for the project. I'm here tonight with Mike and Jamie Andreni, the homeowners, as well as some other members from our design team, should they need to be called upon. So the synopsis was wonderful. I want to just give a little bit more information regarding the project. So we are proposing a series of additions, one to the side and one to the rear, and they're both designed to improve the functionality of the residence and intended to provide additional living space as well as the attached 2-car garage. The design is, well, this is some existing condition images just to kind of provide context for the existing home as it is today. As seen in the site plan previously shared, we will have a side addition that would allow for entry. The unique part of the site and the lot is that they do have a corner lot. So the front portion of the home is actually at a higher elevation where a lot of the entry sequence to the house happens, kids coming home from school, things like that. So there are program spaces that were designed and oriented with the house in relationship to that function. But it is true that setback at the front is a little closer to the street than is allowed by the zoning. So we really were very mindful in terms of the size and even the height of that new addition. We kept it very modest and only 1 story. And then as you were to go back further on the lot, where we needed a little bit more space to accommodate some of the program, that's when we were able to sort of increase the size of the volume in its verticality, but still maintain something that was modest in its projection, and kind of keeping in line with some of the other architectural features that we'll see on the elevations as we go. Mainly, a lot of the addition is focused in the rear of the home. It has a lot to do with the fact that the site is sloping. So as we can see on, say, a 3D rendering like this, the front of the facade the street meets that front door at a higher elevation, keeping that massing very in line with a normal 2.5-story home that you would see in the neighborhood. Then as you kind of turn the corner and come towards the lower grade of the property, there's existing conditions that lent itself for an addition, a modest size addition for the family home. It took into account this lower level and an opportunity to provide a 2-car garage, for program space, especially since there would be no curb cut required. That condition exists as it is. We did look to, the size of the 2-car garage is modest compared to what you might see today. Typically, people would design a 24 by 24 garage. We were using smaller proportions to achieve a usable space for the homeowners. And similarly, we were even looking to step back the facade in the addition. So we didn't even overwhelm the full footprint of the garage. We actually tried to be more modest in the size of the massing for the rear addition, and then incorporate a deck to kind of add to the landscape and the massing at the back. Another important thing to think about as well is that one item, you can kind of see this red line here, and I'll move it, is that the main bearing wall for the home is along this spine. And so when we were choosing to put the rear addition on, we really picked this rear point such that we were to keep the volume of the addition away from the street and away from the setback. We actually are 7 feet away from the edge of the home in an effort to keep any volume and massing internal to the lot. And so we really are able to meet all of the other zoning requirements besides the FAR. In the relief that we're receiving, it would only be for the floor area ratio. So we would meet all of the other requirements. And we did submit for historic. The Historical Commission did review the project and unanimously approved it. So they seemed overall pleased with the massing and the architectural character that was presented in the project. And so, really feeling that we worked very hard to ensure that the design decisions and the massing not only looked to relate to the existing home and really utilize what was there and kind of extract and complement the existing massing. We did take into account other factors of the site and the neighborhood that would be favorable, and then also in line with a lot of the other homes found in the neighborhood. And again, because the lot is undersized and it has grade exposure at the western end of the property, we feel like the floor area ratio is something that we've come here today to request relief from. And that might be it. I'm happy to answer any questions, or if the homeowner would like to say anything, I can keep my slides up, but I will mute myself.
You can probably take your slides down. You might want to put them back up. Do the owners want to say anything additionally beyond what Ms. Murray presented?
I think Carrie captured it well. I mean, we moved here because of the neighborhood, the historic nature of it, the historic nature of the home. So in trying to add some more space with our growing family, we really took that into consideration. That's a lot of the reason why we worked with Carrie. She was very sensitive to that need of ours. And I think it's like she said, very modest expansion of the existing space, continuing with the existing materials and elements and roof lines, while also maintaining the integrity of the neighborhood environment. And we really love the neighborhood. We want to stay here. We don't want to. We hate all these tear downs that are happening and new construction. So we really want to preserve what we think is a beautiful example of the architecture of the neighborhood. But given its age, And the spaces are very compartmentalized. And again, we have a ever-growing family. And we wanted to really, connect with the outdoor space as well and just add some key spaces, functionality that we don't have presently. And the house is very tall, but we don't seem like we get to use a lot of the space given the basements have been unfinished. And this just, again, adds some program spaces that we feel we desperately need and kind of tie everything together. So again, we want to stay here and we don't want to see, we don't want to move and we don't want to see the house demolished or anything like that. So we think Carrie's design is really captures the essence that we were trying to capture.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now is the time to ask if there are any residents, neighbors who would like to, members of the public who would like to comment on this proposal. I'm not sure. Curtis, did we receive any letters on this? I don't recall that. Did you folks reach out to any neighbors or get any input from some of your neighbors on what they think of this?
We did, thank you. Most of our neighbors are on vacation right now, so they weren't able to attend tonight, but we did have 3 letters of support from our closest neighbors.
Oh, did you submit those?
They are,
Yeah.
they're in our portal. As
Great.
well, photocopied in the packets that I had dropped off earlier today, the paper packets for the committee.
Okay, thank you. I don't see anyone who wants to speak, so we can take it into the committee for comments. Wow, it's a quiet group. Councillor Farrell.
Sorry about that. I think this is a terrific project. We were out there visiting today. It's a beautiful home, and my sense is that the additions will follow in the character of the current building. I just want to know one thing. Will the new driveway be the same in composition as the existing parking space?
Ms. Murray, maybe
Yep,
that's for you.
sorry. Yes, so even if I was to go to this plan here and I'll pull it up, this is the landscape plan. So the new driveway, if you could see it, I know it's upside down. I was trying to keep the orientation in the same direction. But this zone here would be the new driveway. And currently, I could go back to the little images. That is where there's like Keystone, there's stuff in this area for parking that happens in this zone currently. And that's why we really work to preserve things like that, elements like that, so that the neighborhood's used to this kind of use, the client is used to this kind of use. And so, yes.
Thank you. When we were leaving today, I commented to my colleagues that I thought the parking area was fabulous. And I was reminded that it is not considered to be permeable. And I really want to work with engineering or somebody in the near future to understand why this isn't permeable. I just think it's great. And if that's what you're going to replicate where the new driveway is, I'm in 100% support of this project. Thank you.
Keystone should be considered a pervious material in my humble opinion. Councillor Roach.
Thank you. I think Councillor Farrell is talking about the other driveway, which has the cast concrete with the grass in it. So there are 2 different
That will be
driveways.
preserved. Mhm.
That'll be preserved as a parking area, correct?
Yes.
There are two parking areas, one on each, it's a corner lot, and one on each street. The one I think you're talking about is the concrete cast with the
Yeah.
grass. There's also a pea stone parking area on the other frontage.
And that's what I guess I was asking, whether that would be the same.
That, it sounds
Materials.
like they'll both be the same materials as exist.
Fabulous. Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome. First of all, Mr. Melcher, congratulations on your recent promotion.
Thank you.
Appreciate the outreach to the neighbors and recording the responses and getting them to us. I just want to confirm that there is not currently any garage. Is that correct?
Yes, there is not currently a garage.
Okay. As I say every time I hear the word mudroom, mudrooms should be allowed by right. Totally in favor of that part of the project. I, I really find it a little troubling, and I understand why technically this lot is considered undersized. It's nearly 10,000 square feet, 9,965 square feet. That is not an undersized lot. It is a large lot. It was large, it's large now, it was large when you purchased it. And it is not constrained in any meaningful sense in terms of providing quite a large home. We're adding 1,407 square feet here, a large part of that for car storage. This is inconsistent with some of the concerns that continue to be raised in our efforts to eliminate tear downs. I know that this is not a tear down. However, this is taking a pretty big house and making a much larger house. So the stock of homes in our city is one much larger house larger. There's nothing compelling to me about the need for a house this size on this size lot. And I cannot support the excess of the FAR. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Roach. Councilor Block.
Councilor Lucas, had you had your hand up?
What?
Oh, okay.
And
Thank
I'm in
you.
charge.
Thank you,
You're-
Chair. Yes, I just trying to keep peace in the family here.
You don't need to do that.
I'm interested, this house lies just outside the Auburndale Historic District, and I'm wondering whether either the architect or the owner wants to tell us a little bit about how you think about that historic district and how the Newton Historic Council Commission responded to their review of your proposal. Just talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Thank you. Yes. We had the historic meeting maybe a month or two ago, and actually they praised the design. It was unanimously voted upon in favor of the design. And they praised the design for keeping within the historic nature of the house. So, and that was, as our homeowners, that was quite our intent of doing that. We love historic homes. That's why we purchased this home. It has retained almost all of its detail. We haven't changed a single thing about the house down to the doorknobs. And that's something that we highly value in our house. The need for we didn't intend to build a bigger house than we needed. And I think the way that the design lent itself to, in terms of just some functionality things, especially on the slope or connecting the mudroom to the front door, sort of the FAR sort of crept up a little bit because the functionality for us with our young kids, just it makes it a more livable place for us. But your first question was, what do we think about being inside, right outside the historic district? We love our neighborhood. We love walking around here. We love historic homes. And so that's one of the reasons why when we were contemplating moving or renovating, we pretty much very easily felt that renovating our current home was more important to us than starting over somewhere else.
Thank you for sharing that. Am I right? This is an 1880 construction? Is that how old it is? Yeah, okay. Just
Yeah.
want to make sure I got that right.
I could also just, may I add one more thing?
Mhm.
Just a point of clarification, on our FAR sheet, and I am very novice at all of this and learning as I go. It says our allowable FAR is 0.34. However, because we're, I believe, built before 1953, we add a 0.02, so it should be 0.36. And I just wanted to mention that since there's two different documents with two different
Okay.
FARs on there.
Well, thank you for that clarification. Um, I know this intersection really well. It's a very prominent intersection in Auburndale. And when you approach this from Hawthorne Street, this is the house that you see, your house, when you reach that intersection. It's it kind of dominates that intersection, and it just lends a sort of grandeur to that, to the Aspen Hawthorne intersection. And I just want to say that and commend you for maintaining that relationship with the street. It feels very comfortable. And I understand the need for growing families to look at their homes and figure out how can they make it a little bit more functional. An awful lot of families in Newton go through this very same process. They're older homes built in another era. People want modern kitchens. They want mudrooms. They want features that that back in 1880 they didn't do. So we catch up. So I appreciate the questions about the FAR and your sensitivity to the FAR. It doesn't seem to me to be an extraordinary departure from our requirements, from our zoning requirements. And the being on a corner and having two frontage requirements is it's just unusual. And the side that doesn't face Aspen, that's on a dead end street, so there's not a lot of traffic that goes in that direction. When the time comes, Madam Chair, this is in my district, and I'm happy to move to approve this at the appropriate time.
Great. I will be coming back to you. Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Block. You know, this is a modest addition. I think it's 973 square feet. Everything else is conforming, building heights, setbacks, all dimensional standards, lot coverage, open space, you name it. So to me, in my opinion, this is a no-brainer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. Councillor Leary.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I look carefully if there's a FAR that exceeds what is allowed by right, but I also put it in context. What I see here is a new building that is not out of scale to the neighborhood. I love that there's historic preservation involved. It's well designed and your neighbors are happy with it. So I will be voting approval for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leary. Councillor Golden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to commend the proponents, the family, for what they're proposing at this point. I think first of all, the design is very tasteful, very appealing. I salute the work of the architect. And, of course, when you consider the criteria we're supposed to be applying when making this decision, we're obviously this is going to work for the family, and make a significant improvement in their ability to use the property for the growing family. But we look beyond that too, who might come later, and hopefully that's a long time. But when we think of the present and the future, I think this design change will work well for everybody, will work well for the neighborhood in the future. And I'm going to be pleased to vote for it when we get to that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Golden. Councillor Irish.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree. I think really to be commended on the design, the level of detail to maintain the historic look and feel of the home. They could have easily just sort of attached, something boxy and easy, and really it's so well integrated. So that's not always easy, and I think it's well designed. This is a small thing. I was just looking at the letters that you did submit, as I have hard copies here, and I'm glad that you reached out. I did notice that they are dated from November 2025. And I just want to know if you could speak to that, if anything had changed since you got these letter of support from your neighbors. I just want to make sure that they're aware of the most current plans that were submitted.
Yeah, it's been a long process to get to this point. So there have been minor tweaks. And I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, that actually the home only got smaller in scale since what we have submitted to them.
Okay, thank you. And again, I when we get to the point, I would support this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Irish, I hadn't realized you had been going this long on this project, homeowners. Councillor Farrell, you wanted to speak again?
Thank you, Chair. Enough about the home. The hydrangeas are just amazing. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. I'm just going to very briefly say I too am really impressed with the sensitivity and thoughtfulness of the design, both for the home itself and for the neighborhood. You have one of the older houses in a very mixed neighborhood. You have Victorians and colonials and Tudors and this interesting old thing. And I think that your architect has really addressed so much of that very well, including kind of the site planning part of it. It's just very well designed. I will be very happy to vote in favor of this. And we will go back to Councillor Block.
I move to close the public hearing and to move to approval.
Thank you, Councillor Block. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
That sounded unanimous. Yes. Okay. We also have a motion to approve. So let's take a look at the findings and conditions.
I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Thank you.
Here is the draft council order for 33 Aspen Ave, which is a special permit to construct multi-story rear and side additions to a single-family dwelling exceeding floor area ratio. And I'll go through the findings here. The site is an appropriate location for the rear and side additions with a floor area ratio of 0.41 because the dwelling is at a scale that blends with the existing neighborhood of single-family homes. The proposed additions, which exceed the FAR as developed, will not adversely affect the neighborhood, as the proposal complies with applicable dimensional requirements, such as lot coverage, open space, facade ratio, height, and number of stories. The eastern side addition will laterally extend the non-conforming front setback. However, it will not further encroach into it and is considered de minimis. There will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians because the project utilizes the existing driveway openings, which provide adequate sight lines and access for those entering and exiting the site. Access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. And the proposed additions, which exceed the FAR, are not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood and are similar in scale to the existing homes in the neighborhood. And underneath that, we have the information about the petitioner as well as the relief being sought. We have the plan referencing condition for the site plans and the architectural plans. The standard building permit condition, as well as the standard certificate of occupancy condition. And that covers the draft council order.
Thank you, Mr. Melcher. I just remembered I had meant to say one other thing during my remarks, and that is, in this neighborhood, this is not one of the huge houses. There are some much bigger, grander homes in this neighborhood. So for me, I think this fits very much into the kind of mixed context of the neighborhood. And to Councilor Roach's point, I don't believe it's every homeowner's responsibility to do this most number of smallest units and no parking. I think this project is very suitable to this neighborhood and this home and these homeowners, and I'm very happy to vote in favor of it. So now we're going to vote.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Golden,
Aye.
Counselor Irish,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Roach,
No.
Counselor Kelly.
Aye.
The motion passes 7-1.
Good luck with your project.
Many thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, end of the road, end of the night. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Recording stopped.